Final exam Virginia Life and Health Exam questions. Where will a life insurance policy's proceeds be directed to if all the beneficiaries die before the insured? The insured's estate. PAD is covered by a disability income insurance policy that covers disabilities arising from a work-related illness or injury. The amount of his disability income payments for an on-the-job injury may be reduced by benefits paid under workers' compensation. An agent has received the first-year commission paid on a Medicare supplement policy. Renewal commissions must then be provided for at least years after the first year. 5 years. What determines how much an annuitant is paid for a variable annuity? The market value variations of the securities backing it. Under what circumstances does an accident and health insurer have the right to request an autopsy? When not prohibited by state law. These are all accurate statements regarding universal life insurance except policy loans are not permitted. An applicant submits a life insurance application where an investigative consumer report is used in the underwriting process. Which of these statements is true? Applicant has a right to receive a copy of the report. How often must the Commission examine each domestic insurance company? Every 5 years. Where does the primary funding for Medical Part A come from? Federal payroll and self-employment taxes. Periodic health claim payments must be made at least monthly. Which of the following approves continuing education courses for credit in Virginia? State Continuing Education Board. Employees generally receive workers' compensation benefits for lost wages and medical expenses due to an occupational accident. Taxable income may be the result from all of these modified endowment contract (MEC) transactions except for the policy is surrendered for less than what was paid into it. What would be a valid reason for naming a trust as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy as opposed to naming an individual? Management of proceeds would be provided. Sylvia purchased an annuity for $100,000 from the proceeds of an inheritance. No further payments are permitted and the income stream begins in 15 years. This contract is an single premium deferred annuity. What is the primary reason for the State Corporation Commission's examination of an agent's insurance records? To determine compliance with state insurance laws and regulations. Which of the following provisions allows an insured or the insurer to terminate the policy? Cancelable provision. How is an insured's accident and health claim handled by an insurer if it occurs during the policy's grace period? The unpaid premium may be subtracted from the reimbursement. Which of the following does TRICARE provide accident and health coverage to? Military families. According to the needs approach, an emergency reserve fund's primary purpose is to cover the cost of unexpected expenses. A health insurer must provide a proof of loss form within 15 days of receipt of the notice of loss. COBRA extends coverage for a surviving spouse but at a rate not more than _________ of the group premium. 102%. The change of occupation provision in a disability income policy states that, in the event the insured changes to a less hazardous occupation, which of the following may apply? Benefits can be increased in the event of a covered claim. Misrepresenting pertinent policy provisions relating to coverage after a loss is a concealment in insurance application and unfair claims settlement practice and unfair discrimination between individuals, a violation of the principle of adhesion. Unfair claims settlement practice, which is an accurate description of the premium in a graded premium life insurance policy. Annual increases in premium for a stated number of years, then levels off for the remainder of the contract. In regards to technology and the ACA, which of the following statements is correct? States which operate with an exchange must offer an internet-based portal. What determines the full amount of Social Security retirement benefits a qualified individual is entitled to receive? The primary insurance amount, PIA, determines the full amount of retirement benefits for an eligible person. A license who must complete continuing education as a requirement for license renewal must do so every year. 2 years. When an agent is determining the suitability of an annuity for a client, which of these is not usually taken into consideration? Level of education. Underscore is the attempt made by an agent to intimidate or use force. Coercion. What is payable to the policy owner if a whole life policy is surrendered prior to its maturity date? Cash value, which typically changes at the re-entry option date found in some term life policies. Premium. Under which circumstance may an insurer discontinue a small employer group medical plan? Employer fails to pay the premium for it to the end of the grace period. When an insurer discovers, during the claim process, that the insured's age was accidentally misstated on the life insurance application, the insurer will likely pay an amount the premiums would have purchased at the insured's actual age. License agents in Virginia are authorized to solicit, receive, and forward applications to the insurer. Which of these is not relevant when determining the amount of personal life insurance needed? Local unemployment rate. How is the insured protected if a payer benefit rider is attached to the life insurance policy? Premium payments are waived in the event the premium payer dies or becomes disabled. In a long-term care policy issued in Virginia, any provision limiting pre-existing conditions may not exceed 6 months. In regards to health insurance, what is meant by the term primary policy? It is the policy that will pay up to its limit before any other policy pays. In Virginia, once a life insurance policy has been in force for years, it becomes incontestable. 2 years. A trustee-to-trustee transfer of rollover funds in a qualified plan allows a participant to avoid mandatory income tax withholding on the transfer amount. There is no federal tax withholding involved in a transfer of funds from one qualified plan into another. Rollovers, however, involve a 20% withholding. Once the rollover takes place to the new custodian, the remainder of the distribution is made. Tim is in need of surgery. Before being hospitalized, he is referred to an outpatient clinic for diagnostic tests. What is this an example of? Pre-admission testing. What type of premiums are associated with individual mortgage protection life insurance policies? Level premiums, flexible premiums, modified premiums, decreasing premiums. Level premiums. Which of the following statements is true regarding accident and health insurance claims that reimburse on an indemnity basis? Claims can be sent directly to the insured. When does a family accident and health policy's coverage for a newborn child begin? At the moment of birth. An agent who attempts to intimidate is engaging in coercion. Medical supplement policies in Virginia may contain neither waiting periods nor pre-existing conditions exclusions. What minimum percentage of all eligible employees must participate in a group life insurance plan if the premiums are completely paid for by the employer? 0%, 50%, 75%, 100%. 100%. Which of the following would provide a reimbursement of some premiums when a long-term care policy is cancelled? Return of premium rider. In Virginia, an insurer must file a written notice of appointment with the State Corporation Commission within 30 days of the first insurance application submitted by the licensee. Which of these statements regarding the extended term insurance non-forfeiture option in a life policy is accurate? The premium to purchase the coverage comes from the policy's cash value. Medicare will cover a maximum of how many days per benefit period in a skilled nursing facility? 100 days. What are premium for group credit life insurance based on? Flat rate unrelated to the borrower's age. How much is normally paid to a policy owner in a life, biatical, settlement? Less than the death benefit. A 55-year-old recently received a $30,000 distribution from a previous employer's 401k plan, minus $6,000 withholding. Which federal taxes apply if none of the funds were rolled over? Income taxes plus a 10% penalty tax on $30,000. Which of these is not an unfair claim settlement practice? Offering to settle a claim by arbitration. Disability income insurance normally excludes coverage for disabilities that arise from active duty military. Which of the following health provisions requires that the application becomes part of the policy? Entire contract clause. A cease and desist order issued against an agent suspends the agent's certificate or broker's license, prevents the agent from receiving commissions, prohibits a specific practice listed in the order, terminates the agent's appointment with the insurer. Prohibits a specific practice listed in the order. N underscore 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 insurance company conducts business in a state outside the one in which it is domiciled. Foreign. An independent agent may represent several insurers. Which life insurance clause prohibits an insurance company from questioning the validity of the contract after a stated period of time has passed? Incontestable clause. Insurable inter in one's own life is legally considered as generally unlimited. Christopher is issued an insurance policy that contains an attached agreement which alters the terms of the policy. This attached agreement is called an endorsement. An endorsement is a written form attached to an insurance policy that alters the policy's coverage, terms, or conditions, sometimes called a rider. The optionally renewable provision allows what party to cancel the contract. Insurer. If an individual violates a cease and desist order issued by the State Corporation Commission, the individual will be subject to a fine of $5,000. If an individual violates a cease and desist order issued by the SCC, the individual will be subject to a fine of $5,000, which is a role of the replacing insurer during a life insurance replacement transaction. Send notice of the proposed replacement transaction to the existing insurer, who is protected with the other insurance with this insurance provision. Insurance company. When there is a named beneficiary on a life insurance policy, the death benefits are paid directly to the beneficiary without interference from the insured's creditors. Each of the following will trigger a benefit under the presumptive disability provisions, except loss of any one limb. Under a long-term care inflation rider, the benefit levels periodically increase without proof of insurability. A long-term care policy in Virginia must be issued on which of the following basis? Guaranteed renewable. A domestic insurance company in Virginia must be formed under Virginia insurance laws. For purposes of disability income insurance, earned income would include all of the following except dividends, salary, commissions, bonus. Death proceeds from a life insurance policy are typically included in a deceased insured's gross estate. For federal income tax reasons, after an insurance application has been originated, the producer normally is the major personal contact to the insured. Virginia requires that an agent must complete ____ hours of continuing education on the subject of ethics every reporting. 3 hours. Which of following would prevent a person from obtaining a Virginia resident agent license? Residing in a state outside of Virginia. Major medical policies are typically characterized by which of the following? Flat deductible. A major medical expense plan typically includes coverage for hospital room and board. Which of the following is normally covered under the category room and board? General nursing care. Who must sign a rider attached to a health insurance policy in order for it to be valid? Insured and producer. To be valid, a rider attached to a health insurance policy must be signed by the insured and the producer. Which of these is not considered a type of limited payment whole life insurance? Endowment at age 70. Which of these is not an unfair claim settlement practice? Refusing to pay persons bringing false or fraudulent claims. Mike recently lost sight in both eyes. He has a policy that pays a lump sum benefit for this injury. What type of insurance does Mike have? Accidental death and dismemberment. An insurable interest in each other's lives may exist in absence of an economic interest when the individual are marriage partners. A life insurance agent is required to give a disclosure notice about information practices to an applicant or proposed insured prior to or at the time of signing the application. Which type of group plan is excluded from HIPAA rules? Disability income. How does a continuous premium whole life policy differ from a limited payment while life policy? The time period in which premiums will be paid. Which of the following would not be appropriate for an immediate annuity? A parent saving for a child's college. Defamation can be best defined as making a statement that is false or maliciously critical of the financial condition of an insurer. Which of the following is covered by a basic dental indemnity plan? Non-surgical periodontal treatment. Viatical settlement proceeds may be subject to the claims of creditors. Which of these statements is not true regarding a cash value loan against a life insurance policy? Interest payments made by policy owner are deductible. An accident and health insurance policy's premium requirements are set forth in which of the following provisions? Consideration clause. The consideration clause sets forth an accident and health insurance policy's premium requirements. Which statement regarding the waiver of premium rider is accurate? Cash payment is not directly provided to the policy owner. James is covered with health insurance by two different insurers. The insurance with other insurers provision in an individual health insurance policy allows an insurer to pay benefits to the insured on a pro rata basis when the insurer was not notified prior to the claim that the insured has other health coverage. All of these are considered to be a violation of the Federal Fraud and False Statements Act except claims reimbursement. When an applicant applies for a large amount of life insurance coverage, which of the following would likely not be an underwriting requirement? Consumer report, eye examination, urine sample, blood sample. Eye examination. Which of these is not used as selection criteria in the underwriting process of a life insurance application? National origin. When the disclosure of an insured's non-public information is involved, what is the insurer obligated to do? Give notice, explain, and allow opting out.